All right. Well, thank you, and hopefully this is a good start for your summer. I'd like to thank members of the Brookhaven community and everyone here joining for the summer. And a welcome not only to Brookhaven, but a welcome to the National Lab Complex, as was being discussed. I want to strongly thank Dune and the rest of the leadership team here at Brookhaven for your leadership in multiple areas of science. The Brookhaven community, New York, and the nation benefit by your leadership, so thank you very much for you and everyone else here from the lab. I want to make a few comments here about where we are in terms of science in general, in terms of where we're investing, and talk also a little bit about our vision. First and foremost, as you've heard a few times, at the heart and the soul of the Department of Energy is at our national labs. Before there was a Department of Energy, before President Carter stood up the Department of Energy, there was an Atomic Energy Commission. And before there was an Atomic Energy Commission, there were labs. And if you look at where the money is being spent on behalf of the Department of Energy and the four major areas that we operate, it is the vast majority of the $34 billion a year we spend at our national labs. And as was mentioned, there are 17. It is a vast complex. I was just at the Jet Propulsion Lab and with NASA, and they said that they had one lab that was a Jet Propulsion Lab, and I go like, we have 17 of them, and it's big. It is definitely not small. We have giant user facilities. We have giant operations at Stanford and Berkeley and Los Alamos and Argonne. Just in New Mexico alone, we have 25,000 employees at our national labs. It is the largest employer in the state. It is quite large. I want to comment a little bit about the Department of Energy and a little bit around the Secretary's focus and the pillars. I'll do that really quickly. But there are four major areas that we're focused on in the department, all of which are basically R&D businesses. National defense, energy dominance, legacy cleanup, and science. In national defense, and once again, all these operate at our national labs, and depending on the lab, have different portions of those four different areas. In the national defense area, obviously, a very large part of what we do is basically physics. We all know the history of the National Lab Complex that started at Los Alamos and Oak Ridge and Hanford. And a large amount of effort was put over the years, but at the end of the Cold War, there was a bit of a drawdown on some things, such as plutonium stockpile, which, by the way, decays into uranium and helium and actually does need to be managed as a physics point. And so we're definitely spending time and effort on that. The importance around that is obviously important for us as a country. The next one is in energy dominance in what we would call the applied energy area. This is a very exciting time for us as a country, for those of you who are following this. We are now on the cusp for the first time since the 1950s of being a net energy exporter. It is an amazing impact to the country and to the economies. Instead of money being sent overseas to other places for us to purchase energy, it's being produced here by Americans in this country supporting communities. And the driver of how we got to where we are here today is innovation. President Carter, who was a graduate of my undergraduate institution and a fellow nuclear engineer, when they ran into energy issues in the 1970s, his solution was to make do with less. And to basically, we need to do less in the energy area. We, as a country, need to reduce what we do in terms of, and basically long speeches about how we're going to have to make do with less as a country. Well, there was a problem, but that was not the right solution. The right solution was innovation. And if you've seen what's been happening here over the last few years, whether it is significant improvements around solar energy production, around wind capacity factors, around battery performance, around materials that are used for turbines, around oil and gas production cost and recovery, that the amount of innovation in the energy sector has been dramatic, and the Department of Energy and our national labs had a big part of it. Not only have we produced more energy and cheaper here, but we've reduced emissions. The United States has reduced more carbon than any other large economy in the world. We lead the world, and we continue to lead the world. And another fact pattern that a lot of people don't realize is that the amount of carbon which is produced by China is 100% more than what we produce. And they are increasing, if you look at all the data, and many other countries that talk about carbon and emissions, they are increasing, and we have been reducing. Including this last year, we have led the world in the reduction of carbon. So we can have it all when it comes to energy dominance: lower prices, more economic impact, lower emissions. We lead the world, and is led by innovation, and is led by the National Lab Complex. We also do a lot of cleanup from legacy management from our various operations, including here to a small degree. And then finally, the area of science. For those of you who may not be following this, this is a very exciting time for you to be here, be part of the science area, be part of the science complex in terms of the amount of money and the amount of focus that we have. We've just passed and been working with Congress the largest Office of Science budget across our national labs ever in the history of the world, and they're about to pass another budget that would take from last year's highest amount of investment to even a higher amount. So we're about to beat what was just passed a couple of months ago. We had a 16% increase. It looks like we'll have about $1.2 billion of increase, so we could build 2 Brookhavens, beyond, which we're not going to. And not only that, there's been a giant increase in the National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health, at NIST and many others. So the amount of money being spent in science, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the specifics, is at an all-time high, and it's growing. It's a very exciting time. Biggest problem I have right now is how do we go spend the money? What we're looking at doing is obviously increasing facilities, including here at Brookhaven, around various beam lines, around buildings, around computing facilities. We're accelerating use of our user facilities so that people like you can go do work on the big user facilities that have been built, and increasing runtime, which we're very excited about supporting on that. And then finally, we're looking at some very large national initiatives. This is very exciting. There are major new strings of research that could be done. One of the ones that we're looking at possibly doing, and we're working on with Congress, is a new, very large national quantum initiative around quantum information science, quantum computing, quantum networking, quantum sensing, amongst other things. These are things that have great possibilities for the nation and for the future, and we look to take the additional resources that we've been given by the American people and try to move those forward. This is all very exciting. I think it's very exciting for everyone in the areas of science. Broadly speaking, innovation is a major theme, I think, for the country nowadays. If you've been following it, I think there's a new generation, which you all epitomize, focus on what we could do new, that's interesting, that's entrepreneurial. It's a very exciting time for, I think, many of you in this generation of where you're focused. I spend a lot of my time with university presidents. I was just at Caltech. I was just at Stanford. We were just sitting down with Carnegie Mellon. The amount of research and innovation coming out across the broader science complex in the country is amazing. I was also just at SpaceX, which is an amazing place. A lot of people, frankly, of your age, and they roll in steel and rockets come out the back. And it is amazing. I don't know, has anyone been to SpaceX? Anyone? It's hard to get in there. Got one person who's been to space. It's hard to get in there. They don't want it to become a tour site because it easily could be. But the back 3/4 of the large building is basically just a factory where they're making rockets and they're rolling them out the door. The front quarter of the building is basically people of your age who are wearing T-shirts that say "Occupy Mars" on it. And going around on skateboards, eating pizza, and making rockets. It's amazing to see what's going on in the world. So I'm just giving you a few pieces of examples of what I've seen. But let me comment a little bit about the vision here, about how we as an organization and as individuals that you'll be meeting here this summer, about how we think about things. In the world, there are visionaries who come up with the ideas, and there are doers who put those visions into execution. We here at the National Labs, and the history of our founders, Fermi, Oppenheimer, Lawrence, Rickover, as well as all the people here at Brookhaven, are the people who've combined both the vision and the doing. That's what we do, and that's how we make a difference. Edison not only thought about the theory about how to make man-made light or how to build a power plant that could power a whole building. He actually kept on working over and over again with different types of light bulbs until he found one that actually worked. And once he did that, he built the first power plant that was ever used, and he connected it to that first building in New York City. And he basically, with his own hands, took the vision and the doing and brought them together. That's what exceptional results is about. And that has been the history of the National Labs. Enrico Fermi not only came up with the theory of self-sustained fission, but him and his team actually built the first nuclear facility, and he did it with his own hands. If anyone's seen the video, they're covered with carbon. The vision here at Brookhaven is very similar. At NSLS2, the vision of it was brought together here, and it was designed here, and it was built here, and it was operated here. And the people here on the project who you will meet got the Secretary's Excellence Award for building it, for doing it on time and on budget. And I think it's very important, as you can kind of see as you grow up with your careers, is not only coming up with a vision, but being able to get it done and being able to get it done on time, getting it able to do it with the money that you're given is an important aspect of how the National Labs are very successful. We all want to work on things that can be great and that can make a difference. And that's what we do every day here at Brookhaven and across the lab complex. The leaders here like Dune and the others that you will meet just want to create an environment for people like you to do the very best work of your lives. If we do the things that we do here in the National Lab Complex make a real difference to the world. I think this is what's really exciting about the place. We have the ability to make an impact for hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. Let me give you just a few examples. We're building on the successes in the National Lab Complex, where we originally helped to develop the first mapping of DNA at the Human Genome Project. And then subsequently, we in the National Labs were part of the developing of gene editing. And now we're part of developing programs around precision medicine and around biotech drug production that can cure cancers. Very, very exciting. Another thing that we're doing right now is that we produce power sources for NASA and for space missions that are required for us to colonize the moon or Mars or send probes to the Jupiter moon Europa to see if there's life there. This is real projects that people like you are working on today. I don't know if anyone knows much about Europa, but Europa has twice as much water on it than Earth. And they're quite certain that they think that there's a possibility there may be life underneath there. That an amino acid, when Europa was formed, in the 100 kilometers deep water that covers the surface of Europa, that there's a possibility that there's life underneath all that ice. And we're developing power sources because solar intensity is very poor out there, in order for us to try to see and to drill down through the approximately 25 kilometers of ice to get down and try to see if there's life. Very exciting. Third area, another very exciting area that we're working on, and Brookhaven is leader in this, is around batteries. We're working on batteries that have the possibility of performing on various different metrics 3 to 5 times better than the ones today, that will have vast impacts on renewable power, on electronics that you use every day with your phones and computers, and even the possibility of replacing cars to have self-flying drones to carry people around town to replace cars. I was just at Caltech, and by the way, it's not just Caltech, but Airbus is doing this and Uber is doing this. You can look this up if you don't know this. But there's a number of companies out there looking to replace cars with drones to carry you around town. And one of the major things that needs to happen is that battery performance and power to weight ratio is going to be really important. And at Caltech, they were actually developing a drone for an ambulance. So if there was a wreck, and they were designing it when I was there, and they were doing aero tests on the wind tunnel. And this is an amazing piece of technology that the battery technology here and the National Lab Complex is working on can have a major impact. You can get rid of your car, and it can be like the Jetsons. You probably don't know what the Jetsons are. Too old. In the past, when I was listing the 6 areas of innovation that could change the world, they included quantum, space travel, AI and machine learning, sustainable energy, mobility, and genomics. And you know what? Of those 6 areas, genomics, mobility, artificial intelligence, we do it all here at the National Labs. It's truly inspiring to walk through the gates of any of our places every day and go, these are important things that could change the world, and we're working on all of them. And it's not just what we're doing directly, but the world follows us. What we do motivates university researchers and companies and children on what could be dreamed of. And what motivates us? It's going to bed at night knowing that we're working on something important. Maybe it's not the pay, as Dune was saying, but we are doing something important. It is very exciting about going home every day knowing that we make a big impact, and it's really wonderful that you're a part of this. I would like to point out that there's a lot of symbols that we have, and obviously there's a lot of Nobel Prize winners here and elsewhere, but it's really about a team effort. But I would like to point out one interesting piece of data. It's a good New York piece of data. The graduates of just one high school, the Bronx High School of Science, has more Nobel Prize winners in physics than all of China. We still lead the world. We continue to lead the world. 40% of all the Nobel Prize winners in physics came from the National Lab Complex, and 25% of all the chemistry Nobel Prize winners. So if you're looking to get a Nobel, this is a good place to start. So you might want to start thinking about that. What we're looking for is people with a passion, people who look for a wrong that needs a right, who look for exciting opportunities that, if you identify them properly, will have profound implications, and that if there's a lack of knowledge on a topic, that the path of discovery can lead to amazing places. The American people give us and allow you the opportunity as part of their hard-earned money to make amazing discoveries that can make a tremendous impact on the world. That's why you're here. That's why we're here every day. What we look for is people who want to go on that journey with us, who want to participate, and for us to make the best choices in how we manage that, about what areas of research that we focus on. We want to thank you for joining us for the summer. This is a very exciting time, I think, in the area of science. We have more resources, more opportunities, more exciting areas to work on, both here and across the country. And hopefully this will be a really interesting summer for you all. Thanks.